We've all heard of compound interest, the so-called eighth wonder of the world. The magic where money makes more money simply by being left alone to grow. But here's what no one told me early enough. That the real compounding power isn't just in your investments. It's in your habits. It's in the small things you do every day that feel so insignificant, so quiet, so forgettable in the moment. Until one day, they're the reason everything changed. We think getting rich, getting successful, or getting free requires massive breakthroughs, viral moments, or brilliant strategies. But the truth? Most of the time it doesn't. Real wealth, real transformation is built on tiny, repeatable actions. Actions that don't feel powerful when you do them. Actions that don't get applause or likes or instant rewards. But they compound, just like interest, just like money, just like everything in life that matters. And when I learned that, not just in theory, but when I truly lived it, that's when everything began to shift. I stopped chasing the big leap and started leaning into the small step. I stopped looking for motivation and started building rhythm. And one habit at a time, I went from financially reactive, stressed, and stuck to in control, calm, and consistently growing. And no, it didn't happen overnight. But that's the point. Compound habits are slow. They're invisible at first. You won't notice the difference after day 1, or maybe even day 21. But give them a year, give them 5. You'll look back and barely recognize the person you used to be. Because compound habits change more than your bank balance, see? They change you. And in this video, I want to break down exactly how that happens. I'll show you the math behind small, automatic actions that build real wealth over time. I'll share the mindset shifts that helped me stay the course when it felt like nothing was working. And I'll walk you through the actual habits, the boring, unsexy, life-changing habits that helped me go from broke to breathing, from paycheck to paycheck panic to having margin, clarity, and choice. One micro step at a time. This isn't about hype. It's not about becoming rich in 90 days. It's about something deeper, something more honest. The quiet power of consistency. So if you've ever felt stuck, behind, or just tired of trying and not seeing results, this is for you. Because I promise you, you're not too late. You're not too far gone. You don't need to do everything. You just need to start small and trust the math of your own behavior. Compound habits are already shaping your life. Now it's time to make them work for you. 1. The illusion of big wins. For a long time, I believed that the only way to change my life was through something big. A breakthrough, a business idea, a raise, a promotion. Some lightning strike moment that would finally fix everything. I was constantly chasing that one move, that magic shortcut, the perfect side hustle, the right trend at the right time. I watched videos titled How I Made $100,000 in 30 Days. I clicked on every article that said 10 passive income streams that changed my life. And I downloaded every shiny app that promised financial freedom in 3 taps. I kept thinking, this is it. This is the thing. And for a few days, sometimes a few weeks, I was obsessed, motivated, inspired. I'd build websites, write plans, open brokerage accounts, create content, start something new. But I never stayed with anything long enough to see it through, because the results didn't come fast. And if they didn't come fast, I assumed I was failing. I didn't realize it at the time. But I had trained my brain to expect immediate validation. If it didn't work in 30 days, I moved on. If it wasn't scalable in 6 weeks, I gave up. And while I was chasing all those big wins, something more dangerous was happening underneath. I wasn't changing who I was. I was changing tactics. I was changing tools, but I was still the same impatient, reactive, anxious version of myself, just spinning through a different flavor of strategy. And the worst part, I thought I was doing something meaningful. I was working hard. I was researching. I was dreaming, but I wasn't building. And after enough failed starts, that belief that I just need one big break turned toxic. Because I wasn't building consistency, I wasn't building habits. I was just building expectation. And when those expectations weren't met, I crashed. Again and again. Until one day I heard a simple quote that stopped me cold. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. At first, it felt like just another line from another motivational book. But when I read it again and again, it hit different because that's exactly what I'd been doing. I've been trying to change my entire life in a week, in a weekend, in a mood swing, but I had no rhythm, no structure, no sustainability. I was running sprints on a marathon track and burning out every time. That's when I realized maybe it wasn't about doing everything at once. Maybe it wasn't about the perfect idea. Maybe, just maybe, it was about doing one small thing every day for a year. Something so simple, so repeatable that it could actually compound. So instead of launching another project or downloading another app, I picked one habit, just one, and I committed to it quietly. No announcement, no pressure, just one behavior, repeated daily without expecting instant transformation. And over time, something incredible happened. I stopped chasing big wins, and I started stacking small ones. I started seeing progress that didn't spike and crash, but build, brick by brick, layer by layer. And slowly I became the kind of person who didn't need to get lucky or go viral because I had something better. Momentum. Looking back now, I realized that chasing big wins kept me distracted. It kept me addicted to novelty and allergic to patience. But when I stepped back and committed to consistency, even in something as boring as tracking expenses or saving $5 a day, I started changing at the core. Not just my results, but my identity. And that shift from chasing to building, from instant to compound, is what created everything I have now. So if you're stuck in that cycle of waiting for the next big thing, if you feel like you're always starting but never finishing, if you're exhausted by your own ambition, I get it. I've lived it. And I can tell you the real breakthrough doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing less, more consistently. It comes from showing up daily for something small, something boring, something you can trust. Because that's where the compounding begins. Not just in your finances, but in your life. Discovering the power of 1%. It wasn't until I came across one single line in a book, almost by accident, that everything I thought I knew about growth, success, and change got turned upside down. I had been chasing big wins, sprinting into burnout, and then wondering why nothing ever stuck. Until one night, sitting in my room feeling defeated yet again, I picked up Atomic Habits by James Clear. And there it was, one sentence that stopped me in my tracks. If you get 1% better every day for a year, you'll end up 37 times better by the end of it. Not 37% better, not a little improvement, 37 times better. That didn't even sound real at first. It sounded like a nice idea, a math trick, a motivational line you highlight and forget. But I couldn't forget it, because the idea of getting 1% better every day, that felt possible. That felt human. After years of overcommitting and under-delivering, the idea that small improvements could actually multiply over time hit me in a way no 10x your life advice ever did. So I did the math, just 1% improvement each day, not even perfection, just better. And it adds up to exponential growth. That's compound interest, but for behavior. That's the exact same principle we admire in investing, but applied to your habits, your mindset, your routines. And it flipped a switch in my brain. Because if small gains can compound financially, then what if my daily choices, what I eat, what I spend, how I speak to myself, what I prioritize, could do the same? What if every decision was a vote for the person I wanted to become? What if I didn't need a new life tomorrow? I just needed a slightly better version of today. Repeated. I stopped looking for the perfect plan and instead asked myself, what's my 1% today? 1% better. Not perfect, not impressive, just intentional. That became my new filter. I didn't need to overhaul my finances. I just needed to open the bank app and check in. I didn't need to build a full emergency fund. I just needed to save $5 and label it freedom. I didn't need to finish a book. I just needed to read one page, one action, one small shift, 1%. And every time I did that, every time I moved the needle, even slightly, I wasn't just growing in results, I was growing in belief. I started to believe that change was possible for me. Not just for people in books, not just for success stories on the internet, me. Because when you experience consistent compounding results, even tiny ones, your brain stops needing motivation and starts building identity. I no longer hoped I was getting better. I knew I was. Because I had proof, daily, stacked proof, that I was casting votes for a new version of myself. And that version didn't come from one massive act of willpower. It came from micro momentum. That's what 1% does. It's invisible at first, easy to dismiss, easy to skip, but over time it becomes undeniable. It compounds into results you didn't think you were capable of. It becomes confidence. It becomes peace. It becomes freedom. So if you're overwhelmed, if you're trying to change everything at once and feeling stuck, I want to offer you this. Stop trying to be 100% better overnight. Start being 1% better today, because 1% done daily will take you further than 100% done sometimes. 3. Building the first habit. Track every dollar. After realizing the power of getting just 1% better each day, I knew I had to start somewhere. Not with a flashy move, not with a complex system, but with one small habit that I could actually stick to. And of all the options, of all the advice I'd heard over the years, there was one thing I had always ignored because, frankly, it sounded too boring to matter. Tracking my spending. No budgeting apps. No color-coded spreadsheets. Just tracking every dollar. Every single day. It didn't sound life-changing. It didn't sound exciting. It sounded like the kind of thing you tell yourself you'll do, and then abandon in a week. But this time something was different. I wasn't doing it to impress anyone. I wasn't expecting fireworks. I just wanted to see where my money was going. That was it. So I opened the Notes app on my phone and wrote down what I spent that day. $5 coffee, $18 lunch, $30 on gas, $12 subscription I forgot about. No judgment, no shame, just honesty. And on day 1, it felt useless. On day 2, it felt repetitive. But by day 7, I started seeing patterns. And that's when the light bulb went off. You can't fix what you won't face. For years, I thought I had a spending problem, but what I really had was an awareness problem. I wasn't bad with money. I was just disconnected from it, avoidant, guessing, hoping it would work out. But writing down every dollar made me look my reality in the face, and the clarity that gave me, it was like taking off blindfolds I didn't even realize I was wearing. Suddenly, I saw my habits. I saw that I wasn't broke. I was bleeding out slowly through tiny, invisible expenses. $6 here, $9 there, $30 that didn't hurt in the moment, but added up like compound regret. And I finally understood why I always felt like I was running in place. Because I wasn't actually leading my money, I was just reacting to it. But with each day of tracking, I took back control. I began to think before I spent, not out of guilt, but because now I had something to compare it to. I started asking, does this align with who I'm becoming? Not, can I afford this, but does this cost me something more than money? And over time, that one habit, that boring, quiet, 5-minute habit, created massive momentum. My spending dropped naturally. My savings grew consistently. I didn't need to restrict. I simply became more intentional. And with every dollar I tracked, I felt more powerful. Not because I was making more, but because I finally knew where it all went. And when you know where your money's going, you stop fearing it. You stop avoiding it. You own it. That's the magic of tracking. It's not sexy. It won't go viral, but it will give you clarity, confidence, and control. It's the foundational habit that taught me something far bigger than money. The small things you do every day, they are the most powerful things you'll ever do. So if you're overwhelmed, start there. Not with a budget, not with a financial overhaul, just one note in your phone. $1, one day. Track it. Because the moment you face your money with truth, it finally starts working for you, not against you. 4. Stacking micro habits. Once tracking every dollar became second nature, no longer a chore, just part of my daily rhythm, something unexpected happened. I didn't stop there. I started noticing other small shifts I wanted to make. Not because anyone told me to, not because I was following a checklist, but because that first habit gave me momentum. It gave me belief. I began to think, if that little habit made such a big difference, what else could I change? So I added the next one. Automate savings. Nothing big. Just $5 a day, scheduled, invisible, non-negotiable. And it worked, because the decision was made once, not every day. I didn't have to rely on motivation or willpower. It just happened. The money moved, the balance grew, and I felt myself becoming the kind of person who saves, not hopes to save, does save. Then came the next micro habit. Read one page of a money or mindset book each day. Not a chapter, not 30 minutes, one page. Sometimes it turned into more, but the bar was low enough that I never skipped it. And that one page, it kept me in the conversation. It kept my brain engaged with who I wanted to become. It wasn't about information. It was about identity reinforcement. And the more I read, even in small doses, the more I started thinking differently, more long-term, more calmly, more like a builder instead of a spender. The final habit I added, and maybe the most powerful, was the 24-hour pause before buying anything non-essential. I can't tell you how much this saved me, not just financially, but emotionally, because I used to be the person who bought impulsively to feel better, to feel in control, to feel something. But giving myself a full day to sit with the decision gave me space. It created awareness between the urge and the action. I'd add it to a wants list, walk away, and revisit it tomorrow. And guess what? Most of the time, I didn't want it anymore. I wanted peace more than a package. And all these habits, tracking, automating, reading, pausing, they were small, so small. Each one took less than 5 minutes, but they didn't just improve my behavior. They began to reshape my identity. I wasn't just someone trying to get better with money. I was becoming someone who was good with money. The kind of person who makes smart choices. The kind of person who thinks ahead. The kind of person who builds. And that identity shift? That's what changed everything. Because once you believe differently about who you are, your actions start following you, not the other way around. Stacking these micro habits created a kind of upward spiral. Each one supported the others. Each one added momentum. I started craving discipline. I started protecting progress. And before I knew it, these quiet little habits were creating loud results. I wasn't just spending less. I was saving more, investing more, believing more. And it all started because I gave myself permission to go small, to focus on what I could control, to stack wins instead of chasing miracles. So if you're asking yourself, where do I even start? Start tiny. Start with one. And when that becomes natural, add the next. Not out of pressure, but out of belief. Because that's how wealth gets built. Not in one big move, but in dozens of quiet ones, stacked over time, pointing in the same direction. 5. The math of getting rich slowly. At some point in this journey, I stopped thinking about my habits just emotionally and started seeing them mathematically. I stopped asking, is this working? And started asking, what does this look like over time? And that's when everything shifted, because the math of getting rich slowly is just as powerful, maybe even more powerful than the hype of getting rich quick. It's just quieter. Let's take something small. Let's say you save $5 a day. Doesn't sound like much, right? That's one less latte, one skipped delivery app, one most automatic transfer you barely feel. But 5 a day is 150 a month, and 150 a month is 1,800 a year. Most people don't realize they spend or waste way more than that without even thinking. But if you flip that script, if you automated that $5 daily and never touched it, you'd have almost $2,000 in savings by next year with zero effort. Now take that $150 a month and invest it. Let it compound. Let time do what time does best. Over 20 years, assuming an average 8% return, not some miracle, just average, you'd have over $50,000. from $5 a day. That's not theory. That's not if the market explodes or if you time it perfectly. That's just math. It's the power of compound growth paired with the reliability of consistent action. And once you see it, really see it, you stop underestimating the little things, because the little things are everything. That one skipped impulse buy, that one decision to invest instead of spend, that one small act repeated daily, weekly, monthly, it's not small anymore. It's your future. It's peace. It's freedom. And the crazy thing is, it doesn't just compound financially. It compounds psychologically. The more you see the numbers grow, the more belief you build. The more belief you build, the more you protect the process. And the more you protect the process, the faster it grows. That's the part they don't teach you in school. That wealth isn't about luck or genius or timing. It's about trust. Trusting the math, trusting the habit, trusting the process even when it feels slow, especially when it feels slow. Because slow is where real growth hides. Fast feels exciting, but fast is fragile. Slow. Slow is sustainable. So if you have ever looked at your account and thought, what's the point of saving $5? Let me tell you, the point is everything. The point is that it is a seed, and every day you plant it, water it, and leave it alone to grow, you're building something invisible that will one day become undeniable. Whether it's $5 or $50, the math works in your favor if you give it time. So don't judge your progress by the speed, judge it by the consistency, because the numbers don't lie. They grow when you show up. And getting rich slowly might be the least sexy path, but it's also the most certain. And certainty in a world of chaos, that's wealth. 6. Identity transformation. Somewhere along the way, after the tracking, the saving, the 1% days, and the math that made slow progress feel powerful, I looked in the mirror and realized something had changed. Not just in my bank account, not just in my habits, in me. I didn't see someone who was bad with money anymore. I didn't say that sentence in my head the way I used to, with shame, with defeat, with a nervous laugh and a shrug, like it was just part of who I was. I didn't see money as something to fear, to chase, to fix when it was broken. I saw it as something I managed, something I respected, something I led. And that shift didn't come from a course or a podcast or some big financial breakthrough. It came from the repetition of doing small things that aligned it with the identity I wanted to grow into. You see, habits shape behavior, but identity sustains it. You can build a system. You can automate a transfer. But if deep down you still believe you're someone who always struggles, you'll eventually return to struggle, even when you have the tools. That's why the real work isn't just in what you do, it's in what you believe about yourself. And day by day, these micro habits weren't just building discipline, they were building evidence. Evidence that I was someone who followed through, someone who made conscious choices, someone who didn't need perfection, but could rely on consistency. And the more I showed up, the more that identity became real. And here's the part that no spreadsheet will show you, that goes beyond net worth or income, or even how well your portfolio is performing. The real wealth I gained from this wasn't just financial. It was internal. It was emotional. It was the peace of logging into my bank account without anxiety. It was the confidence to say no to things that didn't serve me. Not because I couldn't afford them, but because I knew what I was building was bigger. It was the optionality to make decisions based on values, not on desperation. I started sleeping better. I started planning my future without a pit in my stomach. I stopped avoiding conversations about money and started leading them. That's the wealth no one sees on Instagram. The wealth of clarity, control, and calm. And ironically, that kind of wealth attracts more financial wealth too. Because when you manage your inner state, your outer world begins to reflect it. When you stop living by default, just reacting to bills, trends, expectations, and start living by design, everything changes. That's what this whole journey gave me. Not a miracle, not perfection, just a new identity, a new rhythm, and a new definition of wealth. One that starts with $5, 5 minutes, and one honest decision to begin. So if you're wondering where to start, Start there. Start with who you want to become. Because once your identity aligns with your actions, there's nothing small about your future anymore. 7. The real riches: peace, control, and options. Somewhere along the path of consistent microhabits, quiet financial choices, and identity shifts, something unexpected happened. Yes, the money grew. The savings account that once sat empty started to look sturdy. The emergency fund filled up. The investments slowly multiplied. But what surprised me more than the numbers was what grew alongside them. I started to feel a kind of peace I'd never known before. Not the kind that comes from having enough, but the kind that comes from knowing exactly where I stand. That comes from no longer being afraid to check my balance, or open a bill, or plan for the future. I started to feel control, not over the world or the markets or the chaos of life, but over my own choices, over the way I responded, over the story I was telling myself about who I was and what I deserved. And most of all, I started to feel something that might be the most underrated form of wealth: options. The option to say yes to something that lit me up. The option to say no without guilt. The option to walk away from things that didn't align. A toxic job, a draining commitment, a decision made out of fear instead of purpose. That's when I realized wealth isn't just in number. It's a lifestyle of intention. It's not just about how much you earn or save or invest. It's about whether you get to choose how you live, whether you're reacting to life or designing it on your terms. Before I was surviving, now I'm shaping. Not perfectly, not always easily, but with presence, with clarity, and with purpose. That's the richest part. It's walking through life without the low hum of money anxiety buzzing beneath every decision. It's knowing that your daily habits are building something, not just patching holes. It's having margin, not just financial, but emotional, relational, and mental space. It's no longer needing to perform or hustle or prove because you've already shown up for yourself. That's the kind of wealth that isn't sexy on social media. You can't photograph it. You can't screenshot it, but you feel it in your sleep, in your breath, in your relationships, in your decisions. And once you taste that kind of freedom, you stop chasing the noisy kind. You stop trying to impress and you start building alignment. That's the real payoff. And it didn't come from a raise or a course or some secret. It came from small daily actions, stacked patiently, lived intentionally. That's how you go from broke to peaceful, from reactive to powerful, from default to design. So yes, the money matters, but what matters more is who you become along the way. Because true wealth isn't just about having more, it's about needing less, choosing better, and living fully awake in a life you built with your own two hands. Compound habits are the invisible engine behind real wealth. They don't shout, they don't trend, they don't come with applause or overnight results. They start small, so small they're easy to ignore. So quiet they feel like they're not working. But that's the point. Because the true power of compounding isn't just in what you see, it's in what you keep doing long enough for it to build. One small choice becomes a rhythm. That rhythm becomes a system. That system becomes identity. And that identity, it becomes the foundation for everything you want, not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. These tiny habits, tracking your spending, saving a few dollars, reading one page, pausing before a purchase, seem insignificant in the moment. But over time, they shape how you think, how you respond, how you value your future self. And what they build is extraordinary, not just in your bank account, but in your character, your confidence, and your peace of mind. That's the real return on investment. Not just more money, but more you. Stronger, clearer, wiser. Compound habits don't just grow your wealth, they grow your worth. And that is the kind of wealth no one can take away.